alarm on my wrist comm will not stop, and I already know before I look that this is not a drill. My name is Daniel Whitmore, and 3 hours ago I was asleep in my quarters on Meridian Station, 400 kilometers above the Pacific. Now I am running down a corridor with my boots barely laced, and every screen I pass is flashing the same red header: Unknown Fleet, Mass Entry, Sol System Boundary Breached. I reach the control deck and the noise hits me first. 20 engineers shouting over each other, 3 supervisors trying to bring order, and above all of it, a calm, synthetic voice repeating numbers that make my chest tighten. 200 large vessels, closing fast, no response to standard hailing protocols. Grace Ellery grabs my arm before I even sit down. She runs the orbital tracking grid, and her face has gone the color of old paper. "Daniel, they are not slowing," she says. "They are not even trying to talk to us." I do not answer her, because I do not have an answer. I drop into my station, pull up the debris network status, and for a moment I forget how to breathe. This is my project. 8 years of my life, buried in permits and shipping manifests and quiet funding nobody wanted to admit was for anything other than mining and cleanup. 80 years, really, started before I was even born. Handed down from one team to the next like a secret nobody was allowed to say out loud. A shield built to look like garbage. Today, for the first time, we are going to find out if it works. "Talk to me, Daniel," says my supervisor, a steady woman named Olivia Marsh who has run this floor since before I joined. "Is the grid ready?" "It is ready," I say, and my voice comes out steadier than I feel. "But it has never been tested against a real fleet. Only simulations." "Then today it gets tested," she says, and turns back to the main display. The incoming ships drop out of whatever strange transit method carried them here, and for a second the whole room goes silent. They are enormous. Longer than any ship humanity has ever built. Dark hulls catching starlight in ways that feel wrong, deliberate, like they were designed to look intimidating rather than efficient. My tracking screen fills with contact markers faster than I can count them. "They are heading for the shipyard cluster near the moon," Grace says. "The decoy cluster." "Good," I whisper. "Let them." I flip 3 switches on my console, arming the first layer of the response. Nothing visible happens from where we sit. No ships launch, no weapons fire. Just thousands of small, quiet objects across low orbit, things the entire galaxy has been staring at for a century and calling scrap, beginning to receive new orders. The enemy fleet opens fire on the decoy cluster 12 minutes after arrival. I watch on the display as their opening salvo tears into empty hulls we deliberately left in place, hulls with nothing valuable inside, and the whole room lets out something between a gasp and a cheer, because that is the signal. That is the trigger we built our entire plan around. Every piece of debris in low orbit begins to move. It does not look like an attack, that is the strange part, and the reason it took the Council 100 years to miss it. The pieces do not fly toward the enemy ships in neat lines like missiles. They simply drift into new positions. Thousands of dead satellites and spent rocket bodies and decommissioned stations sliding into the exact volume of space the enemy fleet now occupies, matching velocities with terrifying precision. The enemy ships are moving at orbital speed already. All we have to do is put something solid in front of them. 4 of their largest vessels break apart within 90 seconds, not from weapons, from physics, from 80 years of patient, boring, invisible work that nobody outside this room ever thought was worth mentioning at a dinner party. Nobody in the control deck cheers this time. We just watch, and I feel my hands shaking on the console, because this is real now. Those were not simulations. Those were living things, however strange and distant, and they are gone in a way that cannot be undone. "Enemy fleet is adjusting," Grace says quietly. "They are pulling back from the shipyard and heading for the surface directly." "Second layer," Olivia orders, and I move to the next set of controls. The truth about our defense is that it was never one single weapon. It was layers, built slowly, quietly, by people who assumed the worst about the universe and hoped they were wrong. The debris field was only the first. The second waits on the far side of the moon, disguised as automated mining rigs that have been quietly excavating minerals for 40 years, their true purpose buried under so much paperwork that even half the engineers who worked there never knew what they were really building. Those mining rigs are mass drivers. Simple in design, brutal in effect, built to launch dense metal slugs at speeds that turn a small impact into a catastrophic one. As the enemy fleet turns toward Earth, the moon opens fire, and for the first time since the alarm went off, I hear real fear underneath the enemy formation. Their ships begin to scatter, breaking their neat approach vectors, trying to avoid impacts that our tracking systems predict with unsettling accuracy. "They are learning," Grace says. "Look, they are trying to route around the debris field now." Let them try, I say. There is nowhere to go that we have not already accounted for. I mean it as confidence, but even as I say it, my throat feels tight, because I know this is only the plan on paper, and real events never follow paper exactly. An enemy destroyer breaks from the main formation and drives hard toward Meridian Station itself, my station. Grace sees it half a second before I do, and her voice cracks slightly as she calls it out. Daniel, incoming vessel, direct approach, weapons hot. Olivia is already moving, shouting orders across the room, but I find myself frozen for just a moment, staring at the marker crawling toward us on the screen, because all my work has always been about protecting the planet below, and it never occurred to me that the enemy might come for us instead. Interceptors are launching, someone calls from across the room. Third layer engaged. The interceptors are small, fast, and almost embarrassingly simple compared to the enemy warship bearing down on us. They are not much larger than old fighter jets, built cheap and disposable, flown by young pilots who trained for years without ever expecting to see real combat. One of them is a woman I know personally, a quiet, sharp pilot named Charlotte Innes, who used to eat lunch 2 tables over from me in the station canteen. I watch her ship's marker peel away from the formation and cut directly into the enemy destroyer's path, along with 5 others, and for a moment I cannot breathe at all. The enemy destroyer's weapons fire, wide beams of energy that our shielding was never designed to fully stop, only to survive briefly. One interceptor vanishes from the display instantly, then another. My hands grip the edge of my console so hard my knuckles turn pale. Charlotte, pull back, I say into the comm, though I know she cannot hear me from where I sit, though I know this channel is not even connected to her ship. It does not matter. I say it anyway. Her ship does not pull back. Instead, all 4 remaining interceptors fire something small and precise, directly into the destroyer's forward sensor array, a target our simulations always flagged as the single weak point in their design. Blind the eyes, and even the largest predator becomes clumsy. The destroyer's aim scatters, its next volley missing the station entirely, tearing instead through open space where nothing waits to be hit. It is turning away, Grace says, disbelief creeping into her voice. Daniel, it is turning away. I do not celebrate yet, because I am too busy watching the interceptor markers, counting them, praying the number does not shrink further. 3 remain, then 4, as one signal flickers back online, damaged but alive. Charlotte's ship is among them, and something in my chest loosens just slightly. Across the wider system, the battle is far from finished. The enemy fleet, battered but still numerous, begins pressing toward the deeper defense network, the layer nobody outside a handful of engineers ever really understood, because it was never built as a weapon at all. It was built as confusion. Every human communication satellite, every relay station, every seemingly ordinary piece of orbital infrastructure carries a quiet secondary function, feeding false telemetry into any hostile sensor system that tries to read it. As the enemy fleet gets close enough for their targeting systems to engage properly, their own instruments begin lying to them, feeding back ghost signals, false positions, imaginary threats layered over real ones until nobody in their formation can tell what is actually there. I watch 2 enemy cruisers open fire on each other, both convinced the other is an incoming threat, and for one strange, quiet second, nobody in our control room says anything at all. They are fighting themselves, Olivia finally says. The confusion grid is working. For now, I say, because I know from every planning session, every stress test, every argument in every meeting room for the last 8 years, that confusion never lasts. Someone smart enough will figure it out. Someone always does. That someone reveals themselves 20 minutes later, when a single enemy vessel, smaller and faster than the others, breaks away from the main fleet and begins moving in a pattern our systems cannot predict. It ignores the false signals almost entirely, weaving through the debris field with a precision that should not be possible for a fleet unfamiliar with our space. New contact, Grace says, tension sharp in her voice. It is not falling for the confusion grid. It is heading straight for the primary command relay. That relay sits on a small station 300 kilometers from us, unremarkable in every way, except that it quietly coordinates almost every layer of our defense. Lose it, and the layers stop talking to each other. The debris field stops receiving updates. The mass drivers stop receiving targeting data. Everything we built collapses into disconnected pieces, easy to defeat one at a time. Can we intercept it? Olivia asks. Not in time, Grace says. Everything close enough is already engaged elsewhere. I feel the weight of every hour of planning pressing down on me at once, because there is one option left, one I never wanted to actually use, hidden in a folder of contingencies labeled with a name none of us liked saying out loud. Manual override. It means physically flying out to the relay station and defending it directly. using a small maintenance vessel with almost no weapons of its own, buying time with nothing but stubbornness and a handful of improvised defenses. I can reach it, I say, before I even fully decide to say it. The maintenance shuttle in Bay 4 has a straight line to the relay. Nobody else is close enough. Olivia looks at me for one long second, and I can see her weighing the cost of losing me against the cost of losing the relay, doing the same brutal math I already did in my own head. Go, she says. I do not remember most of the walk to the shuttle bay. I remember Charlotte's voice crackling faintly over a comm channel somewhere, telling me to stay low and use the debris field as cover, because even a small vessel moving through that clutter is hard to target cleanly. I remember strapping into a seat built for cargo runs and slow orbital repairs, never for anything like this. The shuttle has almost no weapons, just a single mining laser meant for cutting rock, not fighting warships. It has thin shielding meant to stop micrometeorites, not enemy fire. It has me, alone, flying faster than I have ever flown anything in my life, weaving between drifting metal hulks that used to be somebody's satellite, somebody's old space station, now repurposed into the only thing standing between the enemy vessel and the relay that holds our entire defense together. The enemy ship notices me almost immediately. It is faster than my shuttle by a wide margin, but the debris field slows it down just enough, forcing it to adjust course constantly, to avoid the very obstacles that are supposed to be protecting me too. I use every scrap of the debris field the way Charlotte told me to, ducking behind dead hulls, cutting sharp angles that a larger, faster ship struggles to match in tight quarters. Its weapons fire once, missing me by a distance that still feels far too close, vaporizing part of a drifting satellite instead. I feel the shockwave rattle my little shuttle, alarms blaring across a console never designed for combat stress. Relay station, this is Daniel Whitmore, I say into the comm, my voice shaking now that there is no one left in the room to hide it from. I need you to overload the outer shield array on my mark, just for a few seconds. A voice answers, calm despite everything. A technician named Henry Bramwell who I have spoken to maybe twice before today. Understood. Standing by. I aim my mining laser, useless against armor plating but not against sensors, not against the delicate systems that let a targeting computer see clearly. I fire directly into the same weak point our simulations always flagged, the same blind spot the interceptors used earlier, betting everything on the idea that this enemy vessel shares the same design flaw as the others. It does. Its return fire scatters wide, blinded just enough. Now, I shout. Henry overloads the relay's outer shield in a short, controlled burst, a wave of energy that does nothing to damage the enemy ship directly, but scrambles every sensor within range for several critical seconds. In that window, with the enemy vessel effectively flying blind, I cut hard to the side, putting a drifting piece of debris directly between us, at the exact moment its delayed weapons fire finally catches up to where I used to be. The enemy ship's own shot clips the debris instead of me, the impact sending both spinning away from the relay entirely, tumbling out of formation, its momentum carrying it further from the station with every passing second. It is disengaging, Grace's voice crackles over the comm, disbelief and relief mixed together. Daniel, it is pulling away. I do not answer right away, because my hands are shaking too hard to trust my own voice, and because somewhere behind me, distantly, I can see the wider battle finally beginning to turn. Across the system, ship after ship in the enemy formation falls into confusion, collision, or retreat. Their fleet, so overwhelming in size just hours ago, has been worn down not by superior weapons, but by 100 years of quiet, boring preparation that nobody ever thought was glamorous enough to celebrate. Debris fields nobody wanted to fund. Mining rigs nobody thought mattered. Communication satellites nobody thought needed extra layers of complexity. All of it, together, doing exactly what it was built to do. By the time I guide my battered shuttle back toward Meridian Station, the remaining enemy vessels are already retreating, their formation broken, their fleet a fraction of what it was when it arrived. I do not know yet what happens next, whether they return with something larger, whether this is truly finished, or only a pause. What I do know, as I finally climb out of the shuttle and feel the deck plating steady beneath my legs again, is that Charlotte is alive, her ship damaged but repairable, waiting for me at the bay entrance with an expression somewhere between relief and disbelief. I know that Henry's calm voice on the relay probably saved more lives today than either of us will ever fully understand. I know that Olivia is already back at her station, coordinating the next steps, because there is always a next step, always another decision waiting. And I know that whatever the enemy expected when they arrived here, whatever quiet, dismissive report convinced them that this world was weak and unprepared, they were wrong in a way that will follow them long after today. We were never the vulnerable ones they imagined. We were simply patient, quiet, and ready, for longer than anyone outside this system ever cared to notice. As the control deck settles into a strange, exhausted calm, Grace turns to me with a tired but genuine smile. "You flew a mining shuttle into a warship," she says. I am still trying to process that. "I had good cover," I say, glancing toward the debris field still drifting quietly outside the window, doing exactly what it was built to do. Olivia's voice carries across the room a moment later, steady as always. "Status report, everyone. Let us see what we have left and what we need to rebuild." I take a slow breath, feeling the weight of the day finally settle into something I can carry, and turn back to my console, ready to begin again.